Hi, my name is Kiri Mitchell, and for our new media class, I decided to write a topic on the ethical dilemmas that some children may face by playing video games, in particular, violent video games. Now, I decided to write my paper on the ethical dilemmas that some children may face when consistently playing video games. In particular, I have studied and researched, also observed two video games and children playing these games, as well as researched other children playing the games of Fortnite and Minecraft. Now, this research was triggered by my observation of my own children and other children between the ages of 6 and 17 years old. I did notice that they do have similar characteristics, and that I'll also be talking about those in the furthering of this conversation. In particular, I found it interesting that when children were playing these video games, that they do also get life lessons and ethical decisions they are faced with in and outside of the game. So, in my research, I want my audience to understand that video game usage can expose children to some ethical dilemmas. My analysis will be seeing why it is so important to provide certain guidelines to children to help monitor and set expectations when it comes to gameplay. Responsibilities will teach children tactics that they can use in situations that could cause possible ethical dilemmas. I'll be discussing these three main points in my presentation. The first point that I will be speaking of in my presentation is regarding the game's objectives of both Fortnite and Minecraft. There will also be some of the exposures that these children are exposed to when they're playing the games. Also, I'll be discussing the video game's complexity during these ethical dilemmas and the common themes that have emerged during my research and my observation for some of the compulsive behaviors that have been developed over time. Now let's discuss the main point, which is the game's objective for both Minecraft and for Fortnite. First, let's start with Minecraft. Now, the authors Mavana Carter and Arthur Gibbs described the objective of Minecraft as being a sandbox game, more like a Lego reality world, where players get to construct buildings and create items to create different structures within the games. Now, with Minecraft, it's a little bit more milder, and there's two game modes on Minecraft, one being the creative mode and the other one being the survival mode. Let's talk about the creative mode. Now, the creative mode focuses on the construction of their little world regarding the Lego world that the game players are creating. Now, they can use their resources freely, and it's available, and they can fly in the creative mode, and it really creates a more analytical and creative behavior in the child, which is good for children in the game world and outside of the game world. However, they also have another mode called the survival mode. Now, in the survival mode, it's pretty much a dog-eat-dog world, a dog-eats-dog world. Now, the resources are not freely available, and the characters cannot fly like they can in the creative mode, and it's more realistic. The characters are more prone to injuries. They do have to collect their own resources to build their structures, and they basically have to survive in survival mode. Now, that also can lead to competition because you're in survival mode. There's also wild characters or wild animals in the game in survival mode. So that leads to a particular ethical dilemma with players in the game if they want to win. Now, according to author Fitzpatrick, also during my research in our text discussed in our new media class, Flow describes massive multimedia online games derive their particular dynamicism as new media forms in the productivity of players themselves and the investment that they make in the evolution of the game itself. And he did take that from Humphreys in 2004. Now that it can be said that in both Fortnite and Minecraft that they can teach children or other game players analytical skills as well as creative thinking or critical thinking skills outside and inside of the gameplay, they can also lead to ethical dilemmas on to do the right or the wrong thing in order to achieve or to overcome their opponents in the games. Now, in our text, there was some correlation with new media and the algorithms of the storylines with these video games. So in the next part of this research, I'll also be discussing the video games complexity as far as it relates to ethical dilemmas. The second game that we will be discussing is Fortnite. Now, author Fitzpatrick said that the objective of Fortnite is basically an interactive game where players are placed on an island of 100. And the last man standing in the gun showdown wins the game. Now, these players are on the hunt for items that will help them win. So that means that they're trying to find weapons and health packs and other supplies that will make sure that they take the advantage. Fitzpatrick also described the game as like a hunger game with AK-47s and other sniper rifles being used in these games. Now, players can build ramps, walls, and other structures to help hide them from the gameplay or the violence in the game, which he also adds that it is a more refreshing turn or spin on the game rather than the normal violent games seen out there today. Also in our text, we spoke with Rainey and Anderson, who analyzed algorithms. Now, both of these games need to use algorithms to help create the story mode and also the creative mode within these games. Depending on the decision that the child or video game player is making is how the story will go. They either win, they lose, or they go to the next level or have to repeat a level. So in the text, Rainey and Anderson state that computer video games are algorithm storytelling. Algorithms are often elegant and incredibly useful tools to accomplish tasks. And in these games, they have to accomplish tasks to move to the next level. Also, the objectives that the kids are subjected to that I mentioned earlier, one being violence and the second one being theft. Now, these games not only teach the children analytical thinking as well as creative thinking, but they also teach them and expose them to bad behavior like violence and theft. Scholastic News speaks on Fortnite and the violence in the game and states that players shoot each other only to win after the 99 other players in the game have been killed. The violence earned in this game has earned it a rating of T for teens, meaning it's not suitable for children under the age of 13. However, I have seen children under the age of 13 playing Fortnite and have also experienced some compulsive behaviors that we'll further discuss later on. Now, in Fortnite in particular, there are several opportunities where ethical dilemmas could be faced. Now, a player can shoot at, injure, or kill another opponent with their weapons, the AK-47s and the AR-15s, but there are also some opportunities where good ethical behavior could be expressed, which also creates the dilemma, where children or gamers in the game have the opportunity to steal their opponent's money, weapons, or resources, but they don't. Also in Minecraft, there is, in the survival mode, they have the option to either steal other players' resources or labor parts to create those Lego themes. Now, the second part of this that I want to discuss is the game designers. Now, the game designers and developers are coming up with new innovative ways to organically create ethical gameplay for gamers. With the implementation of realistic scenarios that push it for engagement and also challenge their moral values. So game developers are kind of holding responsibility for how they put the games together, and they are trying to create more ways of how children can, if they are faced with ethical dilemmas, more rewards and incentives if they make the right decision within those games. Now, in Fortnite and Minecraft, there have been also some scenarios that I have observed during my research where my children have decided to make the correct moral decision in these games, and they did end up being rewarded rather than punished. So the game developers are trying to incorporate good moral behavior. The gamer's complexity in ethical dilemma is meant to focus on the play and the aspects of the morality, and that being challenged with the different variables within the game in order to achieve different levels while participating in gameplay. Now, the third main point that I want to discuss, and this will also be the last point, is compulsive behavior. Now, I researched that children were playing long hours at a time and losing all track of time because of the addictive graphics, the engaging storylines, and also the reward incentives throughout the game. Upon my research, I did find a case study that Gabby Hensliff did discuss in one of her articles. She did say that the compulsive behaviors for what singles Fortnite out from other games is the addictive quality it shares with some of the non-violent social media apps, and the compulsive behaviors that is seen and also encouraged in some children. She also goes to share an example of a case study. I'm sorry, can you repeat? In my main point 2, the gamer's complexity is one of the key components of overriding ethical dilemmas in some of the games that players may face while playing. Now, I'm going to be talking about 2 topics in this main point. There will be morality and also the actual game designers themselves. But first, let's talk about morality. Now, after researching, Skycarved, an author, explains the complexity of these gamings and how they allow players to engage with the game using moral reasoning. And in my personal research, I did observe my children playing Fortnite and Minecraft, and I did see that there were situations where they had to use their integrity to do the right thing in the game, or at times when they did the morally wrong thing so that they could take the advantage and defeat their opponent. Now, for example, I did observe some instances where my children would sniper attack in Fortnite and get their stats up. And then there was other times that I had observed my children being the bigger person in the game and sharing some of their resources with their opponents or their teammates within the game. Now, Gillespie, and this was discussed in our class, also talks of algorithms and the trends of how certain sites use them to promote sales as well as give information to consumers. And this would also be applicable to the game of Fortnite and Minecraft on how the player will do one option over the other option and have these ethical dilemmas of good behavior or bad behavior. Bert Suits, 2015, did state that the illusory attitude, the acceptance of the rule of the game, and the will to uphold them to preserve the experience of the game. Now, the second main part is the game designers. Now, game designers are trying to come up with more innovative,